I've known about. I mean, it happened in 2006. So for the last 9 years, I've had that story in me. I've never told anybody. It came out. Tommy actually inadvertently dropped it on Stone Cold's podcast, and that's how the whole thing got started. And that's how the rumor and that, because Tommy was in talent relations at the time that it happened.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of how it came about. But I never thought it was that big of a story. I decided to stay with TNA and moved on, and you know, I never thought it was that big a deal. Obviously, I don't think WWE missed me in any ways or anything like that. But I never thought it was that big of a deal.
And then you see just you like Abyss, this headlines. Like I kind of I'm trying to think of the right word. That like I would feel when stuff like hit Colt Cabana this, and I'm like, well, it's like anxiety, maybe a little anxiety.
A little anxiety, yeah. You know, that old saying that, you know, who cares if they talk good about you as long as they talk good or bad about you as long as they talk about you.
Yeah.
Part of me subscribes to that, but the other part of me is with you. I hate seeing my name out there almost in any way, in any fashion.
In any way.
Yeah, in any fashion. You know, other than, you know,
he's the
good
greatest
show,
man of
good
all
match,
time.
had a good showing and good person and stuff like that. But I never thought it was that big of a deal. You know, obviously, maybe stepping back and looking at it, and I could see where some people it would be a eye popper to some people, and how they probably wouldn't maybe understand where I was coming from with it. But, you know, it's easy to judge people and to see where, you know, what you think about a certain situation until you've lived in that person's shoes, and that's something.
And all, I mean, not that like the headline websites or whatever, like these podcasts have got to be like a fucking field day for these people, because like now they can just grab news throughout the week if they want to. Or
absolutely. You know, like you're one of the first ones I think that ever did one. I can't think of anybody that's older than you as far as the podcast.
Older than just
no, not older than you. I meant older than you as far as the podcast. You know, please don't take that the wrong way.
Some people, like I've said before, that like I mean, no one like did it like understood, like I understood the podcast, the idea of it and the strength of it, but before people were doing stuff like this, like, you know, years ago, D'Lo Brown was doing something weird
I
like
didn't
this.
know that.
Pitbull Gary Wolf was doing something like this. Jimmy
never knew
Rave
that.
had done something too, but a lot of people were like using the phone, and a lot of people like didn't really understand like the idea of putting together like a real set show. You know what I'm saying? I think I feel I'm the first one to kind of grasp on.
You are, man. You are. For years and years, the podcast, I listen to it all the time. And
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you do. You just have such a great lineup on it, and you do it so well, and you make it such a conversation versus an interview. You do a great job
and that's the thing is that like when you're just talking on the phone with Jim Ross and something slips out, and then like it's so easy just to like be like, well, we were just talking, and then all of a sudden fucking shit pops up.
Oh God, did I say that? Yeah.
I was good. The other, like, it's funny that you said Tom, because Tommy just said something that kind of hit the news line, like, quote unquote, or whatever, about being shot.
I saw that,
and what I said to my friends was like, I've known about that story for years.
I never knew that. I never knew that
in the
either,
same way
man.
that like,
and I'm close to the guy, and I still never knew that.
In the same way that I knew about, you know, I guess just around the circles of the locker rooms, as I knew about that Undertaker stuff for years also.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
See, I never knew who knew and who didn't know about it. Like I said, I never, once it occurred, I never made it a topic. I never told people. Maybe a couple dear friends of mine knew, like Borash might have known about it. But that's about it. I never advertised it. I never. I wanted to move on, and I was happy with TNA, and we were plugging away. So I kind of just refocused my energy on that. And but I was a little surprised that it was that big of a headline. But I didn't know you knew that. All these years, I didn't know you knew that.
I feel like that's what I feel.
You know, it's funny. Like some of the guys that know, like Christian Cage, who was a good friend of mine and just a great person overall, including in the wrestling business. And he had a short run in there, a couple years with TNA, and I got real close to him, and he knew about it, and in a friendly way, he just ripped me a new one about it. He said, "What are you thinking? What were you?"
As it was happening.
After it happened. This was just because it was right. He came to TNA maybe a year or two after it happened, and we hadn't known each other, but he was up in WWE at the time, and he knew about it. And when we got, like I said, we got along so great, but I think that's why he felt comfortable doing it. But as a friend, he tore into me. And I've had a few other guys say it, but I've also had plenty of guys say that, they respected the decision, and plenty of guys say that it, that it just bodes for my loyalty to the company, which was what it was all about to begin with. So,
well, as a friend, I think you should be supportive.
Yeah, I just, you know how it is. When you're closest to somebody, you and Punk, for example, I'm sure you guys bust each other's balls a lot on different stuff, and that's what it more or less was. And
I ripped him for not saying allegedly in a podcast.
Allegedly.
So that was my fault.
That's the disclaimer, man. You put allegedly on anything, and you got a disclaimer.
Sadly, what we're ripping it on these days. So listen, this, you know about this show. It's like I like people's struggles. I like people's stories.
Yeah.
I know you, especially as an independent guy. See, I want to say I guess we'll build into how long before. I know about the Prince Justice stuff.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And the Roger Ruffin stuff.
Roger Ruffin, yeah. Roger where I started. Roger trained me up in Cincinnati, Ohio, back in '95.
Because that's. Dare I say, no offense to Roger Ruffin, I don't think anyone knows the name Roger Ruffin.
No, he does. You know, here's the thing about Roger. He's so knowledgeable and such a loyalist and purist and loves wrestling. And I mean, he's had that school Bone Crushers in Cincinnati. He's been around for 25 years.
And he's produced you, Chris Harris, and Machine Gun, right?
Jillian Hall.
And
Joey Machine Gun.
Yeah.
Carl is doing great over in New Japan right now. Chris Harris, as you mentioned. So he's had some guys come out of there. And he's got such a great reputation in the business. But he's one of those guys, and I've got on him about this for years. He just doesn't publicize himself. He doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
He has no... You know, for years, when I came up there, Les Thatcher was there too. And Les had HWA right around the corner. And I had a choice to make. And I remember Les coming to a hockey game when I worked for the Cyclones, and Les sat me down. I never met the guy, but I knew who he was. And Bob Polk introduced me to him, and Les gave me a 45-minute pitch on coming to HWA. And I went and saw Roger after that, and I just liked Bone Crushers more, even though it didn't have the publicity. Les had at the time they had a WWF developmental deal, and then he got the WCW developmental deal after that. So he was getting a lot more pub and a lot more out there, and people knew who he was. And
he still gave you the 45-minute pitch?
He still gave me the 45-minute pitch. He came to a hockey game when I was working for the Cyclones in marketing, and he sat down and talked to me. He knew I was looking to get in. But anyway, I chose Roger. So Les kind of hated me for a few years about that, and after Abyss did pretty good, Les didn't hate me no more.
Sure, he stole $2,000 out of his pocket.
But Roger was
What is he? Who is he?
Roger Ruffin. He was a referee. Earl Hebner broke him in.
Okay.
Earl Hebner got real close to him. He came up in the Ohio in that area with Les Ruffin. I don't know if you remember that name, but he's an old timer that passed away.
Brother?
No, he actually adopted his last name. It was kind of a mentor kind of thing. But Roger refereed for the WWF throughout the late 70s, all the 80s, and into the early 90s. Did a lot of WrestleManias. Did Piper and Brad at WrestleMania 8.
Really?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did a bunch of. I'm trying to think. You caught me a little off guard. But he refereed several WrestleManias in good spots. Like I said, he had Brad.
You were going to come on this podcast and drop some Roger Ruffin?
I didn't know if I would or not. Me and Ross didn't talk about him at all. Me and JR didn't talk about him at all. So it's good to talk, but he taught me so much. He laid a great foundation. He was such a great trainer, and he was so passionate, and we trained twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays for 3-hour sessions, and he just kicked our asses, and I learned a lot. Like, he gave me a great foundation on in the ring, just the basics and really good, strong etiquette. I mean, that's one thing he taught me just as much in the ring. He taught me how to handle myself in a locker room and how to treat others. And
what was your class like? Was there a bunch of people there?
There was probably, in my classes, there was like 10 to 15 guys, and you could tell the guys that were in it to win it, and the guys that would, guys would come once a week, miss one session. But there was a group of probably 5, 6, 7 of us that were,
they were all about it?
Yeah. Chris was one of them. Harris was one of them.
I was going to say, how tall are you?
6'6", a little over 6'6".
6'6", 6'7". Yeah, and so like when I went there, I mean, I think Punk and I were like two of the tallest guys. So like, but if Chris was there too, he's a big boy.
Yeah, he was about 6'3".
Some real professional guys, or I just picture like you just towering over everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, I've always towered since in kindergarten I was a foot taller. You should see my kindergarten picture. It looks like I'm in 8th grade compared. I was always the one taking the projector down off the top shelf and setting it up because I was the only one big enough to do it. And I've always always been like that, and it's helped me. My size is it helped me in football. I got a scholarship to Ohio University in football back in '93 or '89 to '93, and it's always helped me, and it helped me in wrestling. It got me noticed in wrestling. I mean, for a guy my size, I could bump and I could move, and that's so uncommon for a big guy. It's hard to find. It's good. It's easy to find big guys, but big guys that can move.
Athletes, of course.
And maybe not so much anymore. I've definitely slowed down as I've gotten older. My Father Time is undefeated. Obviously, I thought I might beat him, but I'm definitely not gonna.
Did you ever see? Like being tall as as a discredit or
never? I've always seen it as an advantage.
Yeah.
And the only time I've ever seen it as a disadvantage, my weight and my height is flying on an airplane or. Fitting in a phone booth or.
Because there's some kids at school that would like hunch over a lot. I know that's a thing when kids are tall. It's like they don't want to be that tall, so that's where they develop like these.
Well, you get ridiculed a lot,
right?
I got ridiculed a lot, man. And here's the thing, kids are kids and they're mean.
Yeah.
And when I was in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, man, I got ridiculed a lot. I got made fun of a lot, and I'm not playing a violin. I think that's common to anybody my size. Growing up, like I said, I've been big since I was a kid, and I think it's common for kids to make fun of that. You see it and you hear about it all the time. And, the big overweight kid in the class and the big tall kid in the class, I was always that guy. And you get ridiculed and you get made fun of. So that was kind of hard when I was young. But as soon as I got into 8th, 9th grade, I was like, wow, this being big thing's kind of an advantage. The high schools were knocking on my door to play football, and the neighborhood kids didn't bother me no more because I was, breaking out and starting to grow hair on my chin and stuff like that.
Yeah, sports is a big thing, especially if you're an athlete.
Sports broke me out, man. I played football in high school. I played at Cleveland St. Joe's from 85 to 88. Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And we had a heck of it. I'm from Cleveland originally. Yeah, that team right there. We had 11 of us get full ride Division I. Full scholarship. Desmond Howard was the starting tailback.
Yeah,
he was on college game. Michigan. And Elvis Gerbach was our starting quarterback. They both went to Michigan. Desmond won the Heisman. Elvis went and had a great career with the 49ers and the Ravens. And I still talk to those guys every now and then. We always laugh about back in high school and stuff like that. But once I got into high school, man. All bets were off. I was like, wow, this. Nobody was making fun of me no more, and people were wanting to be involved in stuff, and and football came around and stuff. So I kind of grew out of that. But that'd be a line if I said it wasn't a little tough as a kid, getting razzed all the time.
I'd imagine. Yeah. So you went and played at Ohio U.
Yep.
And then
after Ohio U, I actually got my master's degree from there too.
Fuck,
yeah. I played. I played from 88 to 92 for my 4 years, but I had a 5th year of eligibility, and I wasn't going to leave. I wasn't going to stay. I was done. I wanted to get out of there and get on with my life. Mm-hmm. And they came to me and said, "Well, if you stay for your extra year and play, we'll pay for your master's degree." So I jumped all over that, and got my master's degree in sports administration and marketing, which it's the #1 grad program in the country. So
it's funny. I want to say that was something I was interested in going into. I remember that was something I was interested in going into. And I think that might have, Ohio U and Bowling Green was one that had
Bowling Green, UMass, and OU, Ohio U are the two tops in the country. Okay. But they when I went, there was only 4 or 5 programs in the country. Now everybody's got it. It's why everybody's smartened up and has one now. OU's is so good. I'll show you the directory. It's in every major sports team, organization, building management has somebody from that program working in it.
I haven't even thought about it because that just kind of flashed back because I remember looking at schools with that, and then I can only imagine now. Yeah, I didn't even think about how everyone probably.
Yeah, when I went to OU, Ohio State, which was 2 hours up the road, didn't even have a program yet, and now they've got one.
So you're working. So you get a job with the Cyclones.
I actually went to Atlanta. I went right when I got done with the master's degree. I got hired as an intern, and then I ended up parlaying that into a full-time job with the Atlanta Knights of the International Hockey League. I was working in the Omni, which was great because WCW was just starting to really get going. This was 93, 93, 94.
So is wrestling in the back of your head this whole time?
Yeah. It's in the back. I mean, I never stopped being a fan and a mark for it. I just was, so.
But while you're doing these jobs, are you like, I gotta sneak in, or?
I hadn't gotten there yet.
Okay.
I hadn't gotten there yet. At that point, I was like, man, I would give anything